Ivan the Terrible in 10 minutes. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be looking at Ivan the Terrible, who was the first Tsar of all Russia. We're going to look at his rise to power, why he is considered a terrible ruler, and how he died. Let's get into it. So Ivan came to power in 1547 when he was only 13 years old. His father, Grand Prince Vasily III, had recently died. And because Ivan was the oldest son, he inherited the title of Grand Prince of Moscow. Now, although Ivan was the oldest son, he wasn't the only child of Vasily and his first wife, Yelena. He also had a younger brother named Yuri and two half-sisters, Elena and Anastasia, from his father's second marriage. When Ivan's father died, though, he left instructions for the Regency Council to ensure that Elena and Anastasia would never marry or have children, but that they would instead live out the rest of their lives as nuns. So basically, this guy right here made sure that Ivan was the only surviving legitimate heir to the throne. Now, even though Ivan technically inherited the title of Grand Prince, the real power in the country was held by the boyar, or the nobility, and specifically the Regency Council that was put in place to oversee Ivan's upbringing until he came of age. Now, for the most part, these people were well-meaning, and they genuinely wanted to do what was best for Ivan and for Russia. The problem was that there was a lot of infighting among them regarding how exactly they should go about doing that. Some members of the council wanted Ivan to marry and produce heirs as soon as possible, while others felt that he needed more time to grow up. Some members of the council were also jealous of the power that Ivan's mother had over him, and they tried everything they could to limit her influence in his life. This created an extremely toxic environment for young Ivan. When Ivan turned 16, his mother noticed that he had become severely depressed, and she took matters into her own hands. She went to the council and demanded that they hand over the regency so that she could take care of her son. The council agreed, but only temporarily, and they gave her control over Ivan for 1 year with the understanding that after that, Ivan would come of age and rule as the sole monarch of Russia. Unfortunately, things didn't really go according to plan. A few months into his mother's regency, Ivan fell gravely ill, and although he did recover, his personality changed drastically. He became extremely violent and paranoid, and he started having terrifying mood swings where he would go into fits of rage and beat anyone who had upset him. After this episode, his mother realized that he was not fit to rule, and she tried to keep him out of the public eye for the next several years. But eventually, the Bojars got tired of being excluded from power, and they forced Ivan's mother to step down as regent, although she continued to live in the royal court and to act as a sort of unofficial advisor to Ivan. In 1565, Ivan married a woman named Anastasia, and they had their first child together, a baby boy. This seemed to calm him down a bit, and for the next 2 years, he actually did a pretty good job as ruler. He reformed the legal system, and he made some positive changes to the way taxes were collected. Unfortunately, in 1568, Anastasia died, and Ivan went back to being his crazy self. This time, though, instead of taking it out on just anyone, he decided to focus his wrath on his own family. He had always been close to his brother, Yuri, and they had actually gone to war together. But now, Ivan accused Yuri of plotting against him, and he had him arrested. He also had his sisters arrested, and he accused them of conspiring with the Polish nobility to invade Russia. It is likely that these accusations were completely unfounded, but we may never know, because Ivan ordered all of his siblings executed. Now, obviously, Ivan needed someone new to blame after killing his entire family, so he set his sights on the Bojars. The thing was, though, that Ivan knew he couldn't just kill them all either, because then who would he have to blame when he goes on another one of his psychotic sprees? So instead, he did something even worse. He gathered the boyars together and publicly humiliated them, stripping them of their titles and having them thrown into prison. Then he invited them to his palace for a feast, where he served them food laced with poison. Only one person survived the poisoning, and Ivan subsequently declared himself the first Tsar of all Russia, taking the title from the King of Sweden, Gustav Vasa. Ivan went on to rule like a god over his people. He created a secret police force called the Oprichnina, whose sole purpose was to spy on his subjects and bring him any information that he might find useful in maintaining his power. They would then take the people they were spying on and either torture them for information or execute them without trial. Ivan also built one of the most infamous prisons in history, where he shackled people to walls and left them to die of starvation. Even though he was married 3 times, he hated women and he banned them from holding any positions of power. He also despised the nobility and he stripped them of any power that they still had left. Basically, Ivan created a police state where everyone was too afraid to speak or act out of turn. Now, despite being the first Tsar of all Russia, Ivan didn't really expand Russian territory. In fact, he lost a significant portion of land during his reign. However, he did successfully complete a massive building project that is still standing to this day. When Ivan ascended to the throne, the capital city of Moscow was virtually destroyed. It didn't even have any paved roads or running water. Over the next few decades, though, Ivan worked with architects and engineers to design and build a new capital city that would be the envy of Europe. He built wide streets, lined with beautiful cathedrals and palaces. He created parks and gardens, and he brought in skilled craftsmen to make Moscow the most opulent city in the world. Sadly, the fire department didn't quite catch on in Russia yet, because Ivan's new capital city burned to the ground in 1571. Although the city was rebuilt, it was never quite as beautiful as it had been before the fire. Ivan the Terrible kept going on these psychotic rampage killing sprees, and in 1581, one of his guards ended up getting killed during one of them. Ironically enough, this guard was Ivan's son, who had been named Ivan after his grandfather, the first Ivan. So the first Ivan had accidentally killed his grandson, the second Ivan, and he didn't even realize it. At the time, the second Ivan had been 21 years old and had already shown signs of having the same kind of violent behavior as his father. Ivan the Terrible wasn't exactly broken up about losing his son, but he did feel a little bad about killing his grandson. To make up for it, he actually made the second Ivan the godson of Russia. So yeah, they're still technically related. After the death of the second Ivan, Ivan the Terrible had no surviving legitimate children, which meant that his dynasty was effectively over. Fortunately for him, though he had plenty of illegitimate children, who would go on to have children of their own and carry on the bloodline. Ivan the Terrible was succeeded by his godson, who became the third Ivan. Now, even though Ivan also specified that he wanted to be buried next to his first wife, and that the funeral procession should be headed by 8 bishops when he died, his son ordered that he be buried in the Archangel's Cathedral alongside other Russian rulers. Historians believe that he was actually poisoned by his own son, but there is no evidence to prove that. All we know for certain is that Ivan the Terrible died on March 28th at the age of 53. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and check out some of our other videos.